two giveaways really were the difference there in that first half, because I thought we were doing some really good things, but then we got that takeaway, had a takeaway negated by an offside. So
Dillon Gabriel was not better than Shedeur Sanders in college. Dillon Gabriel was not better than Shedeur Sanders in minicamp when the rookies was there. He was not better at minicamp or training camp when the veterans was there. He did not perform better than him during the game he was in. And it's time out for people with the cap.
But I do view him as somebody who could position himself to be that QB2. And if he's not in that position, but he's playing well, we know that the reason that would be the case is because they don't want people clamoring for Shedeur Sanders prematurely.
Kevin Stefanski has finally reached his breaking point. For weeks, he stood at the podium, choosing his words carefully, shielding his young quarterback from the harsh spotlight. But this time, the mask slipped. After yet another disappointing outing, Stefanski didn't mince words. He admitted, plainly, bluntly, that Dillon Gabriel's performance was not good enough. And then came the dagger. The head coach went further, pointing to specific moments in that disastrous second quarter. Decisions that weren't just questionable, they were catastrophic. Play calls that turned opportunities into turnovers. Drives that should have built momentum, instead collapsing into momentum killers. The ripple effect was unmistakable. Fans left restless, muttering in frustration. Teammates walked off the field with body language that told the story louder than any stat sheet could. This wasn't a bad day at the office. This was the kind of breakdown that shakes the foundation of trust. When a head coach publicly calls out his quarterback, it's not just about accountability. It's a signal, a flashing red light that says, this experiment is failing. For Stefanski, a man who has built his career on control, precision, and structure, this moment marks a turning point. The faith is gone. The patience has run out. And now, the question looming over Cleveland is no longer if Gabriel can turn it around, but how much longer the Browns can afford to wait.
Good so far. And this one is picked off and going back the other way. Now it's a foot race. Welcome to the Philadelphia Eagles, Andrew Makuba. A pick six the other way on the first play of the second quarter.
After the final whistle blew, the contrast could not have been clearer. All night long, Dillon Gabriel labored under the weight of expectation and cracked. No touchdowns, no statement throws, no defining moments that could silence the critics. Even with the backing of a first-team defense giving him every chance to control the pace, he squandered opportunities one after another. His mistakes didn't just stall drives, they tilted the field, swinging momentum fully into the opposition's hands. But perhaps the most alarming part wasn't his performance. It was his response. Instead of humility, instead of accountability, Gabriel projected a sense of control he hadn't earned. Then came the moment that turned frustration into controversy. He dismissed Shedeur Sanders not as a quarterback, not as a rival, but as an entertainer. A jab that may have felt small in delivery, but carried consequences far larger than he could imagine. That kind of arrogance, on the heels of such a disastrous outing, sparked immediate backlash. Analyst G. Bush cut through the noise, calling Gabriel's words reckless and unnecessary. And he was right. For a quarterback touted as having near-machine precision, Skynet-like processing, the media said, a Terminator in the pocket. The gap between Gabriel's reputation and his reality was glaring. Instead of proving his edge against live defenses, he chose to take aim at Sanders. And in doing so, he didn't just challenge another quarterback. He poked the hornet's nest of Sanders' massive and fiercely loyal fan base. What should have been a night of clarity for Gabriel became something else entirely. A moment of self-inflicted chaos, one that now threatens to overshadow his future in Cleveland.
When it comes to being a supercomputer, he was only second to Skynet in the Terminator series. He is now capable of sending Terminators backwards and forward through time, waging a war with the Shedeur Sanders fans.
But here's the truth. This entire controversy doesn't just rest on Dillon Gabriel's shoulders. At its core, it circles back to Kevin Stefanski. From the very start of training camp, his approach towards Shedeur Sanders has been puzzling, if not outright unfair. While other quarterbacks cycled through opportunities with the first team, Sanders was left watching from the sideline, denied the very reps that could have showcased his ability. And it wasn't because he failed to impress. Quite the opposite. In limited snaps, Sanders displayed the kind of poise and playmaking that sparked excitement, both inside the locker room and across Cleveland's fan base. Yet, when the buzz grew louder after that electric preseason debut, Stefanski didn't lean into the moment. He resisted it. He doubled down, making it abundantly clear that Sanders wasn't part of his immediate vision. Publicly, Stefanski framed his stance as fairness, claiming his priority was developing everyone, not just Sanders. On the surface, it sounded diplomatic, but the tone, the phrasing, the timing, it felt less like balance and more like justification. An excuse to keep Sanders buried on the depth chart, regardless of merit. And that's where the tension truly ignited. Fans weren't just frustrated with Gabriel's shortcomings. They began to question their head coach's motives. Was this about competition, or was it about control? Was Stefanski protecting his system, or simply protecting his pride? One thing became certain. This wasn't just a quarterback battle anymore. It was a controversy with roots deep in leadership. And to understand just how combustible it had become, you only need to hear Stefanski's own words.
Yeah, pleased with Shedeur, pleased with the offense. Again, not perfect, plenty that we can work on, but I thought the guys did a really nice job of Shedeur and operating, the guys making plays. So, again, a ton to teach off of.
If Kevin Stefanski's earlier comments weren't enough to raise suspicion, the latest reports have escalated this drama to an entirely new level. Word now is that Stefanski isn't even considering Shedeur Sanders as part of the Browns' future plans. For fans, it felt like a gut punch. After all the hype, all the glimpses of brilliance, and the undeniable energy Sanders injected into the franchise, their head coach still isn't convinced he's the man to deliver. That revelation didn't just bruise Sanders' confidence. It rattled the faith of a fan base that's been clamoring, begging to see him take the reins. Because when a coach makes it clear he doesn't believe in his young quarterback, the message is unmistakable. There's no future here. And once that seed of doubt is planted, it grows quickly. It grows in the locker room, in the stands, and across the entire city of Cleveland. And everything, every subtle comment, every decision, every refusal to elevate Sanders, pointed toward one possible reality. Kevin Stefanski was deliberately killing Shedeur's momentum. Then came the reports that blew the doors wide open. Whispers began to spread that Stefanski himself had pushed a false narrative, that Sanders was dealing with an injury, an oblique issue, supposedly. But the timing was too convenient, the explanation too flimsy. And that's when Stephen A. Smith stepped in. On national television, Stephen A. didn't hold back. He accused Stefanski of fabricating the entire story, of creating a smokescreen to justify burying Sanders on the depth chart. This, he argued, wasn't about protecting a rookie quarterback. It was about protecting Stefanski's control. The so-called injury was nothing more than a cover-up, a convenient excuse to keep Sanders sidelined without sparking outrage from the fans who were already demanding change. Stephen A. pointed directly at the depth chart as his proof, calling it the ultimate smoking gun. If Sanders had truly been injured, he argued, why did it only surface at the exact moment when key roster decisions were looming? Why was it that just as Sanders had positioned himself for a legitimate shot at climbing the ladder, this mysterious setback appeared out of nowhere? To Stephen A., the answer was clear. The Browns never intended to let Sanders rise. The sudden talk of injury wasn't medical. It was political. A perfectly timed maneuver to stall his ascent, to preserve the existing order, and to ensure Stefanski's plan remained unchallenged. And for fans, that explanation hit hard. Because if Stephen A. was right, then this wasn't just a coaching decision. It was sabotage. And it meant Shedeur Sanders' future in Cleveland was being written not on the field, but in the shadows.
And that comes with going up against competition. Of course, second and third units and all of that stuff come into play. But when you're the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, had he shown up this weekend and balled out again, playing 45 or more snaps like he did in the first game and putting up similar, if not better numbers, I think that would have boded very, very well for him.
At the heart of Kevin Stefanski's decisions lay a single, unwavering motive: to push Dillon Gabriel as the Browns' next great hope, to cast him as the hero in this unfolding quarterback saga. But when the lights came on and the game played out, that vision collapsed under the weight of reality. Gabriel's performance was anything but heroic. From the opening drive to the final snap, he failed to command the offense, failed to inspire confidence, and most crucially, failed to score. Not a single touchdown. No statement throws that could sway belief. No flashes of brilliance to suggest he was ready for the stage Cleveland had prepared for him. Instead, his outing was defined by hesitation, miscues, and missed opportunities. Even with the luxury of a strong first-team defense giving him every chance to settle in, the story that fans will remember isn't about his potential. It's about his mistakes. And when the dust settled, Gabriel's attitude only deepened the unease. There was no sense of urgency, no visible ownership of his struggles. For a city desperate for clarity at the quarterback position, that demeanor left fans more puzzled than reassured. The situation had become so shaky, so undeniable, that even Kevin Stefanski could no longer shield it from public scrutiny. Standing before the media ahead of the next matchup, the head coach opened with optimism, framing the Browns as being in a good overall position. But optimism only carries so far. When pressed, Stefanski was forced to confront the reality everyone had witnessed. He admitted it outright. Dillon Gabriel was responsible for 2 critical turnovers. Both, he acknowledged, stemmed from poor decisions, errors not of circumstance, but of judgment. And those errors didn't just cost the Browns possessions. They disrupted the entire flow of the contest, handing momentum straight to the opposition. For a quarterback being groomed as the future face of the franchise, that admission cut deep. Because in the NFL, mistakes happen, but when the head coach himself calls them out publicly, it means patience is wearing thin, and the margin for error is disappearing fast.
2 giveaways really were the difference there in that first half, because I thought we were doing some really good things, but then we got that takeaway, had a takeaway negated by an offside. So
Kevin Stefanski has finally reached a point he never imagined, admitting his mistake. For weeks, he stood firm, repeating the same lines. Shedeur Sanders wasn't ready. He needed development. He needed time. And when that wasn't enough to satisfy the critics, an injury narrative appeared, one that Stephen A. Smith wasted no time tearing apart, calling it nothing more than a smokescreen. But excuses can only last so long when reality comes crashing down. And reality hit hard in the form of Dillon Gabriel's collapse. Time after time, drive after drive, Gabriel faltered. Instead of showing growth, he regressed, failing to sustain momentum, turning the ball over when it mattered most, and ultimately exposing the flaw in Stefanski's gamble. The idea that Gabriel could be molded into the Browns' next leader didn't just fall short. It backfired spectacularly. And with that failure came a realization too glaring to ignore. By holding Sanders back, Stefanski wasn't just stunting the growth of a rookie quarterback. He was robbing the team of the spark, the electricity, and the composure that Sanders had already shown in his brief opportunities. The turning point came not from a single play, but from the undeniable accumulation of mistakes. Fans saw it, analysts called it out, and eventually even Stefanski was forced to confront the truth he had resisted for so long. That truth was simple. Shedeur Sanders deserves a shot. He has already displayed qualities that Gabriel hasn't. Poise under pressure, accuracy in tight windows, and a natural sense of leadership that rallies teammates instead of leaving them frustrated. And for Stefanski, acknowledging this wasn't just about football. It was about repairing trust. Trust with his locker room, with his organization, and perhaps most importantly, with a fan base that had grown tired of excuses. Now, the Browns stand at crossroads. Does Stefanski finally do what he should have done weeks ago? Allow Sanders to step into the spotlight and prove himself? Or does he cling to a narrative that has already crumbled, risking not only his credibility, but the patience of a city desperate for hope? Because at this stage, the truth is clear. Every day that Sanders remains sidelined is another day wasted, another spark denied. Stefanski has recognized his mistake, but the bigger question remains, will he fix it, or will he repeat it? And that's where we turn it to you. What do you make of Stefanski's change in tone? Is this genuine accountability, a coach finally owning up to his error? Or is it simply damage control, a way to save face now that Gabriel's struggles can no longer be hidden? Do you believe Stefanski is truly ready to give Shedeur Sanders a fair chance? Or is this just another attempt to control the narrative? Let us know in the comments below. We want to hear where you stand. Because in Cleveland, this isn't just about one quarterback battle. It's about trust, leadership, and the future of the franchise.